weakness that never belonged to you. A cinematic psychological narrative. There is a moment in every person's life when the noise of the world finally fades, and the silence becomes loud enough to hear the truth you've been running from. Maybe it happens late at night, when the lights are off, and your heartbeat is louder than your thoughts. Maybe it happens when you're staring at a cracked ceiling or blurry reflection. Or maybe it happens when something small breaks inside you, something you didn't know was fragile. In that moment, you feel a heaviness you can't explain, a tiredness that doesn't belong to your age, a weight that feels older than your body, a sadness that feels inherited. And somewhere in the middle of that silence, you ask a question you've avoided your entire life. Why do I feel so weak? Why does pressure break you? Why does your voice shake? Why do you fear conflict? Why do you chase approval like oxygen? Why do you collapse emotionally over things others seem to handle easily? Why do you feel like a child trapped inside an adult body? The answer begins with the first man you ever tried to understand, your father. Part 1. The story of a boy who learned to be small. Let me tell you a story. There was a boy, maybe not very different from you. His name can be anything. Let's keep it simple. Let's call him Elias. Elias grew up in a house where silence was normal, not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind, the kind of silence that made you walk on your toes, the kind of silence that meant danger was near. His father was present, but not really present. He existed in the house like a storm exists in the sky, loud, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Sometimes he was loving, sometimes he was cold, sometimes he was angry at things Elias didn't understand. But the worst part, the boy never knew which version of his father he would get. One day, Elias brought home a drawing, a simple one, 2 stick figures holding hands. "It's you and me," he said proudly. His father barely looked at it. "You colored outside the lines," he muttered. Elias didn't show him a drawing again for the next 8 years. Another time, Elias dropped a glass. Just a glass, a cheap one. His father's voice thundered across the room. "Why can't you be careful? Why are you always messing things up?" Elias wasn't afraid of the glass breaking. He was afraid of the way his father looked at him, as if the boy was a mistake. And slowly, Elias began to shrink. He spoke less. He laughed quieter. He walked softer. He breathed carefully. Because a child doesn't grow around anger. He grows around avoidance. He grows around fear. Elias never said it, but deep inside his mind, a small belief planted itself. If I stay small, maybe I'll be safe. He didn't know this belief would follow him into adulthood. He didn't know it would shape every relationship he'd ever have. He didn't know, because children never know. They only absorb. Part 2. Psychology. What a father really shapes. A father is the first mirror through which a child sees himself. If the mirror is cracked, the child does not see the mirror as broken. The child believes he is broken. Psychology has a name for this: the father wound. A father wound isn't always abuse. Sometimes it's absence. Sometimes it's unrealistic expectations. Sometimes it's silent disappointment. Sometimes it's emotional coldness. Sometimes it's a man who never healed himself. A father shapes your confidence, your fear of failure, your voice, your emotional expression, your boundaries, your self-worth, your ability to trust your relationship with strength, your to love yourself. The father's voice becomes the child's inner voice. If he was harsh, your inner voice becomes brutal. If he was silent, your inner voice becomes confused. If he was unpredictable, your inner voice becomes afraid. If he never showed affection, you learn to doubt your worth. This is why so many adults feel weak without knowing why. They weren't born weak. They were raised in an environment where strength meant survival, not expression. You learn to read your father's moods instead of reading your own emotions. You learn to avoid mistakes instead of learning. You learn to be perfect instead of honest. You learn to anticipate anger instead of anticipating possibility. You weren't living, you were surviving. Part 3. The second story. The man who couldn't cry. Let me tell you another story. The story of a man named Rayan. Rayan was admired by everyone. Strong, stoic, independent. A leader at work, a problem solver in life. But when he was alone, he felt empty. He felt disconnected from himself. He felt like a stranger in his own skin. He couldn't cry. He couldn't open up. He couldn't say, "I'm hurting." He couldn't ask for help. He thought these things made him weak. He thought strength meant silence. But the truth was crueler. He didn't fear crying. He feared being seen. Because when he was 10, he cried after being bullied. His father looked at him with disgust. "Don't cry. Only weak boys cry. You want to be a man? Then be strong. Hide it." That one sentence became a lifetime of emotional paralysis. Rayan learned to swallow his pain, and with every swallowed emotion, his soul lost a piece of itself. Psychology teaches us something important. A child who is not allowed to feel becomes an adult who cannot feel. This emotional numbness is mistaken for strength, but in reality, it is fear wearing armor. Rayan wasn't strong, he was terrified. Terrified of vulnerability, terrified of honesty, terrified of the emotions buried inside him like landmines. His father didn't beat him. He didn't scream at him. He did something worse. He taught him that emotions are shameful, and that lesson destroyed the man from the inside out. Part 4. The third story. The girl who kept choosing the wrong men. Not all father wounds belong to sons. Let me tell you about Leah. Leah was a bright girl growing up, full of potential. But her father was unpredictable, sometimes loving, sometimes cold, sometimes proud, sometimes distant. She never knew which version of him she would get, and the unpredictable love became addictive. Her brain learned something dangerous. Love is something you earn, not something you receive. As an adult, Leah kept choosing emotionally unavailable men. Men who gave her just enough affection to keep her hoping, but not enough to make her feel secure. Why? Because the brain repeats what feels familiar, not what feels healthy. Every time a man pulled away, it triggered the same panic she felt as a child when her father emotionally disappeared. Every time she tried to prove her worth to the wrong man, she was unconsciously trying to earn the love her father didn't know how to give. This is why so many people end up in painful relationships. They aren't choosing partners, they are choosing patterns. Patterns shaped by the first man who ever had power over their heart. Part 5. Why you feel weak today. The truth is painful, but liberating. You feel weak because you were trained to live in fear. Fear of rejection, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being seen, fear of failing, fear of expressing yourself, fear of becoming your father, fear of not becoming who he wanted, fear of being too much, fear of not being enough. Your weakness is not weakness, it is emotional conditioning. You weren't raised to be confident. You were raised to survive. You weren't raised to trust yourself. You were raised to anticipate danger. You weren't raised to speak your truth. You were raised to avoid making him angry. You weren't raised to explore life. You were raised to manage your father's moods. Part 6. The healing begins with seeing him as a person. Before you can heal, you must do something extremely painful. See your father not as a hero, not as a monster, but as a man raised by another wounded man, a man who learned emotional silence, a man who never felt safe enough to open up, a man who confused control with strength, a man who never healed from his past, a man who passed down wounds in the only language he knew. Understanding him doesn't excuse what happened to you, but it explains why you are hurting. And explanation is the beginning of liberation, because once you understand where the wound came from, you finally realize it was never about you. It was never your fault. You were never weak. You were wounded. Part 7. Becoming who you were meant to be. Healing is not loud. Healing is not sudden. Healing is not dramatic. Healing is in small moments. The moment you speak honestly instead of staying silent. The moment you ask for help without apologizing. The moment you allow yourself to cry. The moment you set a boundary. The moment you stop chasing people who don't appreciate you. The moment you dare to disappoint someone. The moment you choose yourself. The moment you stop running from your emotions. The moment you hold your inner child with compassion. Healing happens when you replace your father's voice with your own. A voice that says, you are allowed to feel. You are allowed to take space. You are allowed to be imperfect. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to heal. You are allowed to grow. You are enough. Part 8. The final story. The day Elias forgave himself. Let's return to Elias, the boy who learned to stay small. Years later, as an adult, he stood in front of a mirror, just like in the beginning of this script. For the first time in his life, he saw something he had never seen before. A grown man who still carried the posture of a frightened child. A man who apologized for everything, even when it wasn't his fault. A man who smiled to avoid conflict. A man who walked softly in his own home. A man who doubted every decision. A man who feared his own voice. A man who never truly lived. He only survived. And Elias looked at himself with a kind of heartbreak that only self-awareness can cause. He whispered, "You weren't weak. You were scared, and no one helped you." He cried that night, not because he was broken, but because he finally understood that the strength he had been searching for was buried beneath layers of inherited pain. That night, Elias didn't forgive his father, not yet, but he forgave himself. And that is how healing begins. There are wounds that bleed. There are wounds that bruise. And then there are wounds that never show on the body because they are buried in the soul. This last category is the one you inherited. It is the wound that makes you overthink every sentence. The wound that makes you apologize for existing. The wound that makes you hide your emotions because you learned that expressing them was too much. The wound that makes love feel dangerous and silence feel safe. You're not dramatic. You're not weak. You're not unstable. You're carrying emotional weight that was placed on you before you were old enough to understand what weight even meant. And the tragedy is this. You grew up believing this weight was your identity. You thought your anxiety was just who you are. You thought your emotional sensitivity was your flaw. You thought your fear was nature, not nurture. You thought your self-doubt was your personality. But none of that was yours. It was given to you by a man who carried his own weight, his own fears, his own unhealed wounds. Wounds he never had the courage or capacity to face. So they became yours. Part 10. The truth about fathers that no one wants to say out loud. Here is something society never talks about openly. Not every father is capable of being the father his child needs. Some fathers are physically present, but emotionally absent. Some fathers are good providers, but terrible nurturers. Some fathers love deeply, but love in ways that harm. Some fathers try, but don't know how to connect. And some fathers simply repeat the emotional wounds they inherited. Fathers are human, and humans pass on pain when they don't know how to heal it. Your father's silence. Maybe it was once his. Father's silence. Your father's anger. Maybe it was once his father's anger. Your father's emotional coldness. Maybe it was the shield he learned to survive his childhood. Your father's lack of affection. Maybe no one ever held him without conditions. Your father's inability to understand you. Maybe he never understood himself. Once you realize this, you stop seeing him as an all-powerful figure and start seeing him as a wounded boy trapped inside a grown man's body. It doesn't make the pain disappear, but it helps you breathe again. Because for the first time, you finally see the truth. His wounds are not your identity. His fears are not your foundation. His limitations are not your destiny. Part 11. When you realize you've been living his life, not yours. There comes a moment when you look at your life and realize something heartbreaking. You've been living according to rules that were never yours in the first place. You became quiet because he taught you noise is dangerous. You became a people pleaser because he taught you love must be earned. You became emotionally self-sufficient because he taught you depending on others is weakness. You became afraid of expressing yourself because he taught you your feelings are burdens. You became perfectionistic because he taught you mistakes equal punishment. You became conflict avoidant because he taught you that honesty disrupts peace. You became fragile in relationships because he taught you uncertainty is the normal shape of love. You became who you needed to be to survive him. But now, you're no longer that child, and those rules no longer protect you. In fact, they are destroying you. So now the question becomes, who would you be without the rules he gave you? Who would you be if you weren't afraid? Who would you be if you didn't carry generational fear? Who would you be if your self-worth wasn't shaped by a man who didn't know how to love himself? What version of you is waiting behind the trauma? Part 12. The moment you finally see yourself, healing doesn't happen when you forgive your father. Healing doesn't happen when he apologizes, because some fathers never will. Healing doesn't happen when the past changes, because it never does. Healing begins the moment you see your own younger self clearly, not the adult you pretend to be, not the strong persona you show to the world, not the composed mask you wear to hide your loneliness. I mean that child, the one who cried quietly, the one who felt invisible, the one who tiptoed around emotions, the one who waited for love that never arrived, the one who learned to live with emotional hunger, the one who believed their feelings were too much, the one who learned to stay silent because silence felt safer than truth. That child deserved better. That child deserved warmth, not coldness. That child deserved guidance, not confusion. That child deserved understanding, not punishment. That child deserved protection, not fear. That child deserved presence, not absence. That child deserved a father, not a storm. And the moment you finally acknowledge that child, something inside you shifts. Your heart breaks open, but it breaks open in the right direction. Because for the first time in your life, you stop blaming yourself. Part 13. The journey of becoming who you were meant to be. Healing is not a grand moment. It is 1,000 tiny decisions. It is choosing to express your feelings even when your voice shakes. It is choosing to rest even when guilt tries to suffocate you. It is choosing to set boundaries even when your childhood fear says, "Don't make him angry." It is choosing to ask for help even when your instincts scream that independence equals safety. It is choosing to trust even when trust feels like walking barefoot on glass. It is choosing to love yourself even when love feels unfamiliar. And eventually, healing becomes momentum. You speak without rehearsing. You cry without shame. You laugh without fear. You rest without guilt. You dream without permission. You love without performing. You choose without apologizing. You walk into rooms without shrinking. You express yourself without fear of rejection. And slowly, you become someone new. Not the version shaped by your father's wounds, but the version shaped by your own awakening. Part 14. The final realization. Your strength was never missing. There's a truth you were never told. Your strength was never gone. It was suffocated. Your voice was never weak. It was silenced. Your confidence was never broken. It was never given the chance to grow. Your emotions were never the enemy. They were misunderstood. Your dreams were never unrealistic. They were never nurtured. Your worth was never in question. It was simply never reflected back to you. You were never weak. You were wounded. And wounds heal, slowly, tenderly, honestly, deeply. One day when you look in the mirror again, not with fear, not with confusion, not with shame, you will finally see the truth. You are not your father's mistakes. You are not his silence. You are not his anger. You are not his absence. You are not his wounds. You are not his fears. You are not his limitations. You are the ending to a story that began generations before you. And you are the first chapter that will finally be written with healing. You were never weak because of your father. You only believed you were. But now, you know the truth. Ending. The truth you were never told. You were never weak. You were wounded. You were shaped by the storms inside your father. You were taught fear by a man who never conquered his own. But now you know. Now you see. Now you understand. And understanding is the first real step toward freedom. You will not remain the child you were forced to be. You will grow into the adult you were meant to become. You will break the cycle. You will build the emotional strength he never learned. You will become the person your younger self was waiting for. And one day, when you look back with clarity, not pain, you will realize something beautiful. You were never weak because of your father. You only believed you were. And now, your strength is finally waking up.